The change in Torres was immediate and dramatic. Where before she had fought defensively, using mobility and precision to avoid damage, now she pressed forward with controlled aggression. Her strikes came faster and with more force, targeting the same vulnerable points, but with a ruthless efficiency that made several aliens in the audience shift uncomfortably in their seats. Thakmor found himself giving ground for the first time in the fight. The human female's tactics had changed completely, and her attacks now carried a weight that spoke of experience beyond simple training. When he tried to grab her, she didn't just evade. She trapped his arm and used his own momentum to throw him across the arena with a technique that spoke of countless hours of practice. "Battle of Olympus Mons," Torres said as she advanced on the recovering Drakmari. 3 weeks of fighting in underground tunnels. No air support, no heavy weapons, just infantry against infantry in pitch darkness. Do you know what we called the Martian separatists who held those tunnels? Thakmor regained his footing, but his confident demeanor had cracked. What? The best defensive fighters in human space. They had every advantage. They knew the terrain. They had prepared positions. They had supply lines. We had to dig them out bunker by bunker, room by room. Torres circled him now, her movements predatory. It took us 3 weeks to clear 5 kilometers of tunnel. Do you want to know our casualty rate? In the stands, archivist Veltar was frantically accessing his datapad, cross-referencing Torres's words with the historical records he had discovered. What he found made his skin turn bone white. 73%, Torres continued. 73% casualties to take those tunnels, and we kept fighting. Do you know why? Thakmor threw a desperate punch, trying to regain control of the fight, but Torres caught his wrist and used his own force to spin him around, placing him in a joint lock that could have broken his arm if she had applied more pressure. Because surrender wasn't an option. Because backing down wasn't an option. Because in human warfare, you fight until you win or until you're dead, and sometimes you keep fighting even after that. She released the lock and stepped back, giving him room to recover. That's what these tattoos mean. That's what you're really fighting. Around the arena, conversations had stopped completely. The casual observers who had come to see a brief demonstration of Drakmari's superiority were witnessing something they had never seen before, a human explaining what their species was truly capable of. Marcus felt a mixture of pride and concern as he watched Torres. She was winning the fight, but she was also revealing more about human military capabilities than he was entirely comfortable with. Still, there was no stopping it now. The galaxy was going to learn about humanity one way or another. Thakmor straightened up. His breathing labored. He was beginning to understand that he had made a fundamental error. This wasn't a duel between individuals. It was a confrontation between two completely different approaches to warfare. "Your species fights without honor," he said, but there was less conviction in his voice than before. Torres smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several aliens take an involuntary step backward. "Honor? Let me tell you about honor, War Champion. Honor is holding a position when you're outnumbered 10-1. Honor is covering your squad's retreat when you know you're not coming back. Honor is fighting through a radiation leak to keep life support running for civilians you've never met." She began moving again, and now Thakmor was clearly on the defensive. Despite his size and strength advantages, he was losing ground steadily. "You want to know what we call what you do? Playing war. Formal duels, ceremonial combat, fights where the rules matter more than the outcome." Torres feinted left and then struck right, her blow finding the nerve cluster just below Thakmor's armpit. His entire left arm went numb. "We stopped playing war a long time ago." In the Altarian section, diplomatic attaché Vexani was having an urgent conversation with archivist Veltar. "Are you certain about these casualty figures?" Vexani whispered. "Completely certain. The Battle of Olympus Mons was one of the smaller engagements of their civil war. The human military doctrine apparently accepted casualty rates that would be considered catastrophic by any other species. Veltar's coloring continued to shift through various shades of pale gray. And based on the female's age, she would have been barely adult when she participated. What about the ambassador's unit insignia? Veltar consulted his datapad again. Special Operations Forces, as I suspected. But the specific unit designation refers to what they call direct action specialists. Based on the records I can access, they were responsible for... He paused, reading more carefully. Surgical strikes against strategic targets, assassination, sabotage, infiltration behind enemy lines. They operated in environments ranging from zero atmosphere to the surface of gas giants. Vexani was quiet for a moment, processing this information. How many other humans in their diplomatic and military corps would have similar experience? Unknown. But given that their last major conflict ended only 17 years ago, and their current leadership positions are held by relatively young individuals, Veltar's skin went completely white. Potentially most of them. Meanwhile, the combat in the arena was reaching its climax. Thakmor was still fighting, but his movements had become defensive and reactive. Torres had systematically neutralized his advantages through superior technique and tactical awareness. "I yield," Thakmor said suddenly, stepping back and raising his hands. The arena fell completely silent. In the entire recorded history of Drakmari participation in consortium affairs, no war champion had ever yielded a formal challenge. Torres stopped her advance, breathing hard but steady. "Are you sure? Because once you yield, the fight's over. No takebacks." Thakmor looked around the arena. Seeing the shocked faces of aliens from dozens of species, his own delegation was staring at him in complete disbelief. But when he looked back at Torres, he saw something in her eyes that convinced him he had made the right choice. "I yield," he repeated more loudly. "The human speaks with honor. I withdraw my challenge to her words." The Luminari announcer seemed uncertain how to proceed. Yielding was so rare in formal combat that the protocols were unclear. Finally, the crystalline being's voice echoed through the arena. "The combat is concluded. Lieutenant Torres is victorious by yield." The reaction was immediate and chaotic. Some species erupted in discussion, others sat in stunned silence, and a few began leaving hastily, presumably to report what they had witnessed to their superiors. Marcus made his way down to the arena floor, where Torres was sitting on a bench and accepting medical attention for her injuries. Despite winning the fight, she had not escaped unscathed. "How do you feel?" Marcus asked. "Like I've been hit by a truck," Torres replied honestly. "But worth it. Did you see their faces?" Marcus looked around at the aliens still filing out of the arena. Many of them were casting nervous glances back at the humans, and conversations were taking place in hushed, urgent tones. "Yeah, I saw. I think we may have changed some perceptions today." War champion Thakmor approached them, walking slowly and favoring his left side. When he reached Torres, he performed a formal bow, much deeper than the casual acknowledgement he had given her before the fight. "You fight with great skill," he said formally. "I was mistaken about your species' capabilities." Torres nodded respectfully. "You're a skilled warrior yourself. In a straight fight based on strength alone, you would have won easily. But warfare is not about strength alone, is it?" Thakmor's expression was thoughtful. "I begin to understand why your species advanced so quickly after achieving space travel. If your civilians can produce soldiers like you and your ambassador, what must your actual military be capable of?" It was a question that neither Marcus nor Torres chose to answer directly. Over the following hours, as word of the combat spread throughout the station, the diplomatic landscape began to shift in subtle but significant ways. Scheduled negotiations were postponed while various species representatives consulted with their governments about how to approach the humans differently. Marcus found himself fielding calls from ambassadors who had previously treated him as a junior colleague representing a minor species. Now they wanted to discuss mutual defense treaties, technological exchanges, and joint military exercises. The most significant conversation came from archivist Veltar, who requested a private meeting in Marcus's quarters. "Ambassador Chen," the elderly Altarian began, "I owe your species an apology. We have been careless in our evaluation of human capabilities." "In what way?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew where this was going. "We assumed that your rapid technological advancement after joining the consortium was your primary achievement. We failed to investigate your history of warfare." Veltar's skin showed deep blue patterns that Marcus had learned indicated serious concern. "The data I have been able to access suggests that your species has recent experience with conflicts of a scope and intensity that most consortium members have not seen for centuries." Marcus chose his words carefully. "Humanity has had its share of conflicts, yes. We've learned that sometimes peaceful solutions aren't possible, and when that happens, you need to be prepared to do whatever is necessary. The Martian rebellion alone involved casualty figures that exceed the total military deaths for most species over the past millennium," Veltar continued. "And that was a civil war, humans fighting other humans." "What's your point, Archivist?" Veltar leaned forward. "My point is that the consortium may have been operating under dangerous assumptions. We have several ongoing territorial disputes with species outside our alliance. Some of these conflicts may eventually require military intervention. If humans are willing to partner with us in such situations..." "Are you asking if humanity would be interested in providing military support to the consortium?" "I am asking if humanity might consider sharing some of their military expertise with their new allies." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking about the implications. "That's a discussion that would need to happen at much higher levels than mine. But I can tell you that humanity believes in protecting our friends." "Of course. I simply wanted to adjust our understanding of what humanity brings to the consortium. It appears we have been significantly underestimating your contributions." After Veltar left, Marcus stood by the viewport in his quarters, looking out at the stars. The galaxy suddenly seemed like a much more complex place than it had been that morning. His communicator chimed, indicating an incoming message from Earth. When he opened it, he found orders promoting him to senior ambassador and authorizing him to begin discussions about expanded military cooperation with consortium species. Apparently, word of the day's events had already reached Earth's leadership, and they were moving quickly to capitalize on humanity's suddenly enhanced reputation. Marcus thought about Torres, who was probably still in medical being treated for her injuries, and about Thakmor, who had shown the wisdom to recognize when he was facing something beyond his experience. He thought about the hundreds of aliens who had witnessed something that challenged their assumptions about the newest members of galactic civilization. Most of all, he thought about the tattoo on his arm and what it represented, not just his own service, but the long history of a species that had never learned to accept defeat gracefully. He rolled down his sleeve, covering the artwork, and began drafting his report to Earth. The galaxy was about to discover that humanity's rapid technological advancement was the least impressive thing about them. In the station's medical bay, Torres was having her own thoughts as the medical staff finished treating her injuries. She had won the fight, proven her point, and apparently helped position humanity as a significant player in galactic politics. But more than that, she had shown the galaxy something that Marcus understood but had never quite articulated, that humans carried their entire history with them, every battle fought, and every lesson learned. Her tattoo wasn't just decoration or even just a memorial. It was a promise that whatever challenges the galaxy might face, Humanity would meet them with the same determination that had carried them through millennia of warfare and brought them to the stars. As the station's rotation carried them through another cycle of artificial day and night, the repercussions of a single combat challenge continued to ripple outward through galactic civilization. Humanity had announced itself not as supplicants seeking acceptance, but as equals demanding respect. And the galaxy was beginning to understand that some announcements are impossible to ignore.